Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. I apologize if you're sick of seeing my face or hearing my voice at this point, but with the trade deadline going on and just having wrapped up as I'm recording this video, there's a lot to talk about. And you know me, I love to talk hoops, so we're going to go ahead and in this video cover the biggest winners and losers of one of the most active and craziest trade deadlines, probably the best one that we have ever seen as NBA fans. Now, I'm not going to talk about every single move in this video or every single team, so if I don't mention them, I'll probably mention them in a video either later tonight or tomorrow, where I'm going to talk about every single trade that went down. I will recap all of them, give all my thoughts. So if you want to see that, make sure you like and subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss when that video goes live. But yeah, I picked out about 4 or 5 winners or losers, and we're going to talk about why each of them are in this category and really just go over what made this deadline so crazy and special. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Of course, when we talk about the winners of this deadline, we have to mention the Phoenix Suns because they traded for Kevin Durant, and I really think I could say that and just move on to the next team, but I will elaborate a little bit. They traded for Kevin Durant, and sure, they had to give up a good bit. They gave up Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, 2 really solid young role players. They also had to give up a bunch of first-round picks, a pick swap way in the future, which could be very valuable for the Brooklyn Nets. But when you have the chance to go ahead and trade for a star like KD who fits in seamlessly with the core they have going on right now, and immediately reopens their championship window, which previously seemed like it was kind of close, or at least on the verge of closing if they didn't make some kind of massive move, they've done that. They have reopened their championship window, and they now look like not just one of the top teams in the Western Conference, but one of the top teams in the league as a whole and potential championship favorites if this team looks as good as I think that they might. Like I said, he fits in perfectly alongside D-Book, alongside Chris Paul, alongside DeAndre Ayton, who are one of the best foursomes in the league at the moment. I'm super excited to watch this team play. Once again, if you have the opportunity to trade for Kevin Durant and hold on to basically all of your biggest star players, you do that 10 times out of 10, even 11 times out of 10. And the Phoenix Suns, who just got new ownership, made a massive splash, one of the biggest moves in NBA history, and they are easily probably the biggest winners of this trade deadline. Now, when we talk about losers, one of the first teams that comes to mind for me are the Portland Trail Blazers. I figured at this deadline, they were going to go ahead and try and get Damian Lillard more help. This Blazers team has had their ups and downs, but recently it's been a big struggle, and Dame is one of the leading scorers in the NBA. He's having a phenomenal all-star caliber season, maybe even all-NBA if the Blazers can find a bit more of team success in the second half of this season, but it doesn't look like they're going to because they actively made this roster worse at this deadline. I really don't know what they were doing. In terms of players, they gave up on Josh Hart, who they were going to have to re-sign, so I do understand that move, but they also gave up Gary Payton II, one of their best defenders for a team that really struggles defensively, and all they got back was Cam Reddish, Kevin Knox, Matisse Thybulle, who is a good defender but can't score to save his life, and, you know, a couple second-round picks, a first-round pick. It's not that much for 2 players that were really big contributors potentially of what you were trying to do down the line. It feels like they just actively decided we're going to lose this season. Maybe they are trying to kind of do a reset where they get one of the top prospects in this draft, see what they can do in terms of like some young guys like a Shaedon Sharpe play a little bit more minutes. I don't know quite what's going on. Blazers fans are so mad on the timeline. And if they are gearing up to trade Damian Lillard in this offseason and reset, I don't think this was, you know, that bad of a deadline. But I know this Blazers franchise, and I also know Damian Lillard, who doesn't want to go anywhere. I don't think they're going to want to blow this thing up. I think this is some way to kind of reroute and try to still remain competitive, not just now, but for the future. But it feels like we just continue to run in this cycle over and over and over again, and I'm begging Portland to blow things up or Damian Lillard to run from the grind so they can prevent other disastrous trade deadlines like this for Portland's front office. Moving back over to winners, the Lakers hit this trade deadline out of the park. It was a home run from Rob Pelinka, a GM that's gotten a lot of crap from me and many others here on this platform because of the way that he's handled their assets over the past few years. But this was a masterclass. He did such a good job. They only had to give up one of those 2 highly coveted first-round picks, and in exchange for that, as well as some other players, including Thomas Bryant, Pat Bev, and Russell Westbrook, they were able to bring in a cast of great role players. Of course, they brought in Rui Hachimura earlier, but at the deadline itself, they brought in D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, Mo Bamba, and Devon Reed. These guys all actively help this team. D'Lo gives them a better fit at the starting point guard position and some shooting. Malik Beasley gives them one of the best wing shooters in the league right now. Jared Vanderbilt helps with their defense. Mo Bamba gives them a shot blocker and a backup big now that they traded Thomas Bryant, who reportedly requested a trade wanting a bit more of a role, maybe now in Denver, which is an exciting spot for him to go. Devon Reed is a solid guard as well, who's going to replace Patrick Beverley in the rotation. It was all around a great deadline. They look so much better than they did previously, and I don't want to say they're a championship contender or anything like that, but I now think this Lakers team has real chance to upset somebody in the first round, or at least give them a very hard time if LeBron and AD can stay healthy. And if they do, this Lakers team not only looks good now, but they're in a much better spot for the foreseeable future, and maybe LeBron can still win a ring at some point in LA following that one a few years ago. Moving back over to the losers, let's talk about the Miami Heat, who did Absolutely nothing. They made absolutely no moves at this deadline, despite being a team that felt like they had to make some type of trade. They just didn't do anything. I don't know if Pat Riley fell asleep or something like that, or just, forgot he had a trade deadline today, but they did nothing, which is stunning because it seemed like, once again, they had so many moves to potentially make. Kyle Lowry was rumored to be on the market. Caleb Martin was a name that came up. I know some other guys like a Max Strus, for example, came up into potential trade talks, and I just thought they were going to do something to get this roster a bit more help. Someone in the front court. They desperately still need a power forward. They got rid of Dwayne Dedmon. In fact, that was the only deal they made, was they traded Dwayne Dedmon to the San Antonio Spurs for nothing. They just got cash considerations back, and maybe cash considerations is the power forward they've been looking for or something, but it just feels like they completely wasted this opportunity. Now, I know they're not in a great position to go out there and acquire, say, like a star player without giving up a Tyler Hero or a Bam Adebayo, but I thought there was going to be some role player out there, and apparently they plan on being active in the buyout market, which I guess is good, but it feels like the Heat continue to just kind of let this thing ride out, and they're not championship contenders. They've been a lot better as of recently, and I've been meaning to make a video about why they've been better and how good they've been, but even still, they could go on like a 10-game win streak and it wouldn't convince me that this is currently a championship contender. I do think Brooklyn now not being a championship team does kind of help them move up the rankings in the Eastern Conference, but they're not up there with like the Celtics, the Bucks, or the Sixers, all three which teams made moves to help themselves improve at this deadline. They each added a really solid piece, but the Heat did absolutely nothing. They're kind of just sitting there. Jimmy's getting older. Kyle Lowry continues to regress. Bam's doing everything he can, having the best season of his career, but it's not going to be enough because Pat Riley fell asleep or something. Now, one trade deadline winner that you might not have been expecting in this video are actually the Brooklyn Nets. I think they did a phenomenal job at this deadline, especially when you consider the position they were in. I mean, a week ago, out of literally nowhere, after being one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference most of the season, Kyrie Irving requested a trade and they sent him to the Mavericks, got back Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie, two really solid role players, to try and convince Kevin Durant to stay, as well as a 2029 pick, which could be very, very valuable down the line. It didn't work out, and KD wanted to go to Phoenix, so they sent him to his preferred destination, which I think is a good move. And they also got back great role players. I mentioned Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson when I talked about the Phoenix Suns trade package earlier in their section of the video, but also 4 unprotected first-round picks, one of which is also in 2029, and by that time, Chris Paul is going to be retired. Kevin Durant will be retired too. Devin Booker will be a bit older. Who knows if he's even on the team at that point. Same with DeAndre Ayton, and the Phoenix Suns in this deal had to give up 2 of their better young players in addition. So yeah, while they aren't a championship contender anymore, they were put in probably the single most difficult position out of any team at this deadline, and I think they executed really well, bringing in a bunch of assets that they could use to replenish their pool since they emptied everything of their own to bring in James Harden. And yeah, that era of the Nets was a failure, but I do think they're set up pretty well for the future. Like I said, they've got a bunch of young talent. While they don't have any picks of their own, I do think this team is still pretty solid. I think they've got a chance to be one of the playing teams at the end of the season. They've got a great defense, a bunch of really solid contributors, but they are missing that one star. However, say a superstar becomes disgruntled this upcoming offseason, Brooklyn has a pretty interesting package of some of these young players, some of these picks, that they could potentially just bring back a star and kind of retry this thing maybe with a new face or two. So it's not all bad in Brooklyn, as much as it probably sucks for Nets fans to no longer have this era going, although maybe they're relieved because all of the drama is over at the moment. I do still think the Nets have kind of a bright future ahead if they play their cards right. Finally, for the losers, I want to talk about 2 teams kind of in combination because I think they have similar reasons for being big losers at the deadline, and those teams are the Raptors and the Bulls. They both should have blown it up. They should have gotten some value for some of these pieces that they have right now, whether because they're aging, they're becoming free agents. These are 2 teams that at the moment are hanging out in like the play-in range. Maybe they'll make the tournament, maybe they'll be a lottery team, but either way, there's really no benefit in keeping this thing going. Neither of them are going to have real championship potential within the next few seasons. However, they both basically just stood pat, and in terms of the Raptors, they brought in Jakob Poeltl, who I guess, yeah, does make this team better in the short term, but he's not going to make you a championship team. I don't think he even makes them a playoff team at this point. Maybe they have some massive turnaround, but even if they make the playoffs through the play-in tournament, what are they going to do? They're not going to upset one of the top teams in the East, and they're once again just going to go into the season being kind of disappointed the way that the season has gone all year. Also, Fred VanVleet, free agent this upcoming offseason. Same with Gary Trent Jr., so they might have now lost both of them for nothing. Maybe there's a sign and trade scenario out there, but that is now a big risk of losing 2 guys for really no real assets of anything. Then with the Chicago Bulls, they did nothing. They didn't make a single move for a team that was speculated, oh, maybe they could trade Zach LaVine. Maybe they could trade DeMar DeRozan and Vucevic. Alex Caruso was also brought up as well, but no, they did nothing. I don't know if Arturas Karnisovas, just like Pat Riley, fell asleep. He was kind of just hanging out. But it feels weird to me that they stood pat because they are in this really rough situation. They have so many players on this roster that could be big contributors elsewhere. Maybe there was just no real packages out there, but I feel like there had to have been something, and I think they might just be stubborn at trying to make this thing work, which it's absolutely not going to do. Finally, the last big winner that I have on this list are the Los Angeles Clippers. They always seem to make some big moves at the deadline that me and many others are like, whoa, that is a really good trade, and they did the exact same thing again this season. They got Eric Gordon, they got Bones Hyland, and Mason Plumlee, three players that really help out a lot of positions of need, and I'll go in depth on each one of them in a second, but they only had to give up like John Wall, who's going to get cut, and he hasn't been very good anyways. Same with Reggie Jackson over to the Hornets. He's going to get cut and hasn't been very good. Luke Kennard, who's a really good shooter, but I think they brought in better players that fit their system, and Kennard's minutes have kind of gotten cut as well. They give up like some draft capital, but it really wasn't anything super significant of the rotation to bring in some really solid guys. Eric Gordon gives them some rim pressure and shooting, and he makes a big return to Los Angeles where he was many years ago. Bones Hyland gives them a really fun young point guard, and I do think they could maybe get the best out of them because they can put some really good defenders alongside him, because that is a big struggle for him and one of the reasons why Denver ultimately kind of had him out of the rotation, and he did get dealt. Mason Plumlee gives them a really solid backup big. He's having one of the best seasons of his career so far with Charlotte, and I think having him behind Zubac gives them a lot of options. They still can go small, but now when Zubac isn't off the court, they're not going to get destroyed continuously by bigs. I think they continue to upgrade their roster, and once again, they're one of the deepest teams in the NBA if PG and Kawhi can stay healthy, and maybe they get like a Russell Westbrook off the buyout market, which seems very, very likely because they traded a couple of guards and only got one in return. The Clippers might be able to get back to that championship contender status that many people, me included, thought they were before the season, and they've kind of started to look like as of recently. Coming from the future here, I figure I should probably also touch on the Kyrie Irving trade, which I wasn't going to originally because it did happen a few days ago and there have been a million videos about it. But of course, it technically is part of the trade deadline season, and I do think that this deal makes the Mavericks pretty big winners. I love the idea of getting Luka a star in the backcourt next to him, and Kyrie isn't just a star. He is an all-star starter, one of the best offensive point guards in the league right now, and the two of them are going to be impossible to stop. In Kyrie's debut, he looked phenomenal alongside a lot of the Mavs' other players. He was setting guys up well, and more importantly, they won a game against a really good Clippers team without Luka Doncic, which the Mavericks typically cannot do. If Luka doesn't play, they're most likely going to get blown out basically every night. So he helps out, allows Luka to rest a little bit, and when he's off the court, Kyrie can carry a large offensive load. Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie were two big pieces of what they did, but I think Kyrie more than makes up for it. And sure, you did also have to trade what could potentially be a really valuable 2029 first-round pick, but if you can hold on to Luka Doncic up until that point, Luka is honestly just kind of that tier of player that regardless of what he has in his supporting cast, he's still going to drag you to at least the playoffs. Those are my biggest winners and losers of the 2023 NBA trade deadline. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my picks, and also drop below what you would grade your favorite team's trade deadline, because I do think there is a lot to talk about. And like I said, I'm going to try and drop a video where I talk about basically every single team and what they did or didn't do at the deadline, either tonight or tomorrow, and that's probably going to be a longer video, so definitely make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this one and also want to see that one. And like I said, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on it. I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say back.